All righty, Dana, we need to have an adult conversation. And this adult conversation is about communication, disagreements, follow up, documentation, about landlords and tenants working together. I don't know about you, but this relationship is not always cozy and friendly. Sometimes there are stress and disputes. So, how's it done? How does Himlane help? I know it certainly would help me today versus 20 years ago, but let's get into this topic because it's going to happen and it will happen multiple times.
Yeah. So you're in the service business, obviously. You have a tenant, and the tenant is your customer. Most times, over 90% of the time, there aren't any disagreements or anything like that. But everything has been moving, obviously, to technology, and I think in a positive way. But if you don't use technology correctly, it can be thought of as it could actually make the relationship worse and kind of stir up these unnecessary emotions. And so let me give you some examples of that. And I'm gonna give three. The first is text messaging. Text messaging is something where a lot of times it's very reactive and very fast.
Yeah.
And so there's not as much thought put into it, correction. Like when you write an email, you think about it, you're like, okay, does this make sense? Someone else read it, then you click the send button. Especially if there is something like, hey, are you going to go ahead and fix this repair? What is the lease renewal amount, et cetera? All of that. Using text messaging to go back and forth or have any negotiations is just a terrible idea, right? So I'm not a big fan of text messaging at all. I think you can use it as a notification of check this message, but I don't think this like text messaging back and forth, especially when it's something emotional, should happen. I also think you can tell a lot from someone's tone in their voice. Like I'm a very direct writer. There's a lot of people who are very direct at writing. It doesn't mean anything, negative or anything like that. It's just that's how some people write. They write emails in business. And so what you do want to do is if you do think there may be something on the other end, capital letters and emails or anything like that, I always recommend picking up the phone. You can hear the tone in their voice. You can understand whether or not this is emotional for them. You can get on the same page, but then here's the most important part: document that call afterwards in an email. Say, thanks so much for picking up my call. As mentioned, here's everything we just discussed. You can even do it while you're on the phone. If you don't have that much time, you can go ahead and document it. But I think that, there might be some disconnection at some point because of just the nature of doing property management. And it's really important to have that documentation. Make sure the tenant is happy. They're your customer. So like make sure that you're following up with them. Don't let things sit for too long. If someone is upset and there's anxiety, the tenant can't sleep at night. Go ahead and pick up that phone and think about what is going to be the best solution. And usually there's some alternatives you can provide for things. An example of that might be a recent one I'm thinking of is like, hey, your credit score is, 600, or maybe it's 620, you don't have that much interest on the property. Maybe for some reason or another, you're priced slightly too high, might want to reduce that price. A tenant comes in and they have a 619 credit score. And you tell them no right off the bat, and they're very emotional because they paid a background and credit check. Give them a call and maybe say, do you have a co-signer? Something like that, and be able to meet them halfway. So I think when you think about relationships and technology, it's important to use technology. And you'll be able to use just email, text message, the apps which do emails, like Hemlane will have email built into there. But at the end of the day, if anything looks like it's getting emotional, I want to emphasize, pick up the phone call. You can tell very quickly being on the phone, and you kind of reduce that anxiety and then document it afterwards in your system of record. And so that's what I would say. Like if you're finding that property management is really emotional for you, it's probably because you have lack of communication and you're not over communicating. And it's incredibly important to make sure you are.
Yeah, I remember our conversation about being a landlord before Hemlane was Hemlane, right? When you were going out and trying to gather and talk to landlords on specs. That's how far back our relationship goes. And I really hit on two things. The first one being this, because I think about the time we were in this 14, 15 years, and it was always about the documentation and working with tenants. Back in the day, it was just more difficult and it wasn't as kind of automatic. And to see what Hemlane has brought to help the self-managing landlord document all of that, it's game changing. It de-risks future problems because I have been involved in he said, she said nonsense. I love to see that. And of course, the other thing was the maintenance and repairs, which you've obviously crushed. But yeah, the audit trail, being a human being, bad news does not get better with time. That is something that most people don't understand, right? A tenant calls you or voices a concern and you think you can wait until the morning. It
Nope.
doesn't get better with time.
Yeah.
Time does not make it better.
Yeah, no, I couldn't agree more. And it's not fair to anyone. No one sleeps well at night or anything like that. So yeah,
it just gets worse. Make a phone call, and I've been doing this so long, and been involved in sales so long. If somebody's going to deliver bad news, do it over the phone. Document it. You never know. It could be lots of reasons. So go have the conversations. When in doubt, make a phone call, leave a voicemail, be accessible, and document. Document.
yep.
Yeah. So Dana, if somebody wanted to get Hemlane and play with this, because again, something my followers should do is you get 30-day trial. They should practice, work with their friends, take the 30-day trial, the PDF you created, and practice being a landlord. It's part of the process. This stuff will happen, I guarantee you.
Yeah, so we do all that communication. It also sends text notifications out to tenants through it, both for anyone who's applying to your property as well as tenants who are in your property, and then helps kind of contextualize it where it says this is a maintenance and repair message. This is a message about lease renewals, all of that. So you can go ahead and visit www.hemlane.com. And just click try for free and then mention Michael Zuber for 20% off your first year.
Folks, do yourself a favor. 30 days for free. Go practice being a landlord. Thanks, Dana.
Thanks for having me.